We're here today to discuss a very, very important issue that's been plaguing our community, even more so under COVID. And that's these trick and stunt driving by people. Some call it sideshows. It's something that under COVID is happening all over San Francisco. 2 weeks ago, we had one of the worst incidents that we've seen in this city. It went on for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And at the end, three individuals were shot and one individual died. I want to be clear. This is still under investigation. It's not necessarily associated with the activities that were happening that night, but it's something that it certainly shows and underscores that these are dangerous events, that these are events that cannot be tolerated in San Francisco. These are not professionals. These are not individuals that have professional training to do these types of stunts and tricks with their cars. So I just want to say clearly, we have zero tolerance for these in San Francisco. And at the end of the day, I also want to extend my condolences to the family in Sacramento that lost their life. This individual was about to have a child, so I don't want that to be lost, and I think we need to pay respect to that. But yesterday, Chief Scott and I, after working on this for a couple of months, along with the mayor's office, introduced a piece of legislation that would increase the ability in San Francisco and the time to impound vehicles. So we want to be very clear. If you do involve yourself in these activities, and we're able to videotape and document your car and your activity, you have the penalty of being arrested and put in prison for up to 6 months. We have the ability to impound your vehicle. First offense, no less than 2 weeks. Second offense, a little bit longer than that. And third offense, just shy of 30 days. Okay? So if you get involved in these, the police and Police Chief Scott is going to talk about the unit and task force that they've assembled to put together on this. But we will take your vehicle. We will impound your vehicle, and there will be consequences for your actions. I want to thank all the neighbors, all the individuals that have been involved with us, working with us. I want to recognize our captain. I know he's around here, Captain Chris Woon, for working with us on this. Oh, there he is in the back. And especially thank Chief Scott and Mayor Breed for all her support and hard work on this. And now I'd like to introduce our mayor, Mayor London Breed. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor, and thank you, Chief, for being here today. I really want to just take this opportunity to recognize the leadership of Supervisor Ahsha Safaí. Since I've been mayor and since he's been supervisor, we've been doing a lot of work for this community. We've heard from a lot of the residents, a lot of the merchants on the needs of this particular community. And what I appreciate about his work is that he is bringing the resources, he's bringing the attention, he's bringing the support to really what is a neglected part of the city. And even for the first time in I think over 20 years, one of the first affordable housing developments in this city, just down the street, he helped to save units that were almost lost to market rate with a number of low-income families. And the reason why I go back to that is because it's so important, it's so critical to make sure that we have someone who represents the district that answers to community, that answers to the needs of the residents here. And in this particular case, in these sideshows, Supervisor Safaí answered the call. He reached out to me, he reached out to the chief. It wasn't just because of the complaints of the people who live here and work here. It was because it was clearly a dangerous situation. It's dangerous for the participants, it's dangerous for the spectators, it's dangerous for all the folks who are within range of this particular event. And let me just say, I grew up in San Francisco. I've seen sideshows. I know people want to participate in them. I know that people think they're fun and they're exciting, and especially during COVID, people feel like there's nothing to do and they want to go out and they want to participate and they want to see these things. But sadly, we're putting lives at risk when we're participating in these events. Sadly, they could result in someone's death. And that's why we're here today. We don't always want to use this heavy hand of law enforcement to address issues, but in this particular case, because of its danger, you have left us with no choice. In San Francisco, they will not be tolerated. We will do everything we can to address them in a manner in which it is fitting of what is happening. Do not come to our city with the sideshow crap that creates the problems that we don't want to see in our neighborhoods. Do not use this as a place to congregate for that purpose. We will do everything we can to make sure that it doesn't happen. And this is just the first step. We hope that you comply. We hope that you also be considerate of what happens at these particular events. We understand that people want to do this, but they are dangerous, and this is no fun if someone is killed. So with that, I want to take this opportunity to introduce our Police Chief, Bill Scott.
Thank you, Mayor Breed and Supervisor Safaí. First of all, I want to thank the mayor and the supervisor for their leadership. I want to reiterate a couple of things that have been said. First and foremost, these exhibitions of the stunt driving under the law are illegal. It's reckless driving. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I can't tell you how many times people's lives have been put at risk with these exhibits. So I want to point out a couple of things and highlight some of what the legislation offers and how it will be helpful for us, the San Francisco Police Department. Number one, this legislation sets expectations of accountability. If you come to this city and participate in one of these events, these exhibitions of stunt, trick driving, we've seen it online, we've seen it in person, it is outright dangerous. If your car is impounded, first offense is going to be impounded for 2 weeks. Second offense, if your car is impounded, it's going to be impounded for 29 days. And any time thereafter, if you participate in these events, your car will be impounded no more than 30 days, but definitely no less than what the law allows. So we want to be consistent. We want to set expectations of accountability and consequences in the city. And if we can prove that you're behind the wheel, you will be arrested. Now, what we are doing in the San Francisco Police Department, a couple of months ago, as the supervisor mentioned, we trained up a squad of officers to deal with these events. But we cannot do this alone. Our law enforcement partners in the Bay Area, this is a regional problem. We see it actually all across the state. We're working with our law enforcement partners, the CHP, other jurisdictions who have similar issues, and we communicate. We need the public's help in that, because when you see these things occurring, we don't want anybody to put themselves in harm's way. But if you happen to have video surveillance at your residence or business, or you videotape it on your cell phone or video cameras, please share that information with us. A lot of people will post it online, and that's okay too. But what we're asking, if you're going to post it online, give it to us as well. Because part of what needs to happen for this to work effectively is we have to be able to put the driver behind the wheel. Then we can do something with that case. I want to speak to the incident that brought us here, and many incidents brought us here today, but we know, and I know, and we've heard from the public, Supervisor Safaí and Captain Woon and I participated in a community meeting last night. And there's a lot of frustration when these things occur. And one of the reasons that people are frustrated, when we're called, we have to have a thoughtful plan to respond to these events because of the danger. The one that Supervisor Safaí was referring to, there were hundreds of spectators. There were at least 50 cars or more participating. And when two officers arrive at that scene, they can't just rush in, because what our experience has told us is that oftentimes leads to worse consequences. We've seen officers surrounded, we've seen police cars vandalized, we've seen officers assaulted, we've seen, not in this city fortunately, but unfortunately, we've seen officers run over. So there has to be a thoughtful plan, and we have to bring the appropriate resources to deal with this situation. And sometimes that takes a little time to rally the resources. So what this unit that we trained up, we want them to specialize in being able to deal with these situations. And again, it's a resource-driven need here. So we want the public, we understand the frustration, but we want the public to know that we are working to make this situation better. We've trained our officers, we're working with the supervisor, we have the mayor's support, we have the legislation, and it will bring consistency and consequences when these things happen in our city. And lastly, before I close, I just want to give you a few examples of what we're talking about. This event a couple of weeks ago, as I said, there were we think about 300 spectators, over 50 vehicles, and a man unfortunately was shot to death in the immediate vicinity of this reckless driving exhibit. You know, we had over 100 calls that came into the police department about people concerned for their safety, and you can't blame them. Squealing tires, people yelling and screaming, trash in the neighborhood. I mean, these things are just bad news. In that particular incident, when the officers arrived, when shots were fired, now they're dealing with a life or death situation where 3 people were shot, and the officers have to go in and try to rescue individuals to get them medical aid to save their lives. It complicates the matters, and oftentimes what we found is these events oftentimes turn into conflict with shots fired. A good example, on August 24th of this year, there was a illegal motor vehicle, basically the same type of event, stunt driving, where vehicles orbited the intersection, performing donuts, figure eights, burning rubber. Approximately 100 spectators cheered on as this occurred. At one point, one of the participants lost control of the car and almost struck several spectators. Fortunately, we did not have anybody killed in that situation. I can repeat this over and over again. We've had other instances in just the recent past where these events have culminated with shots being fired and people being hurt. So here's the message. If you participate in these illegal, reckless events, your car, if we catch you, will be impounded for no less than 2 weeks on the first offense. No less than 29 days on the second offense and thereafter. If we put you behind the wheel, if we can prove that you aided or abetted in participation or facilitation of these events, you will be arrested. And even if you're not arrested that night, if we have the evidence through videos, through the evidence that we need to prove that you committed this crime, we're coming after you. That's the message that the San Francisco Police Department, the mayor, the supervisor, and the board of supervisors, and the people of the city want you to hear if you're participating in these events. So again, as the mayor said, you know, we'd rather for people to use common sense and not participate in these events at all. But now that we see that some just don't want to do that, we're going to have to take more drastic measures. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Chief. I also would like to underscore one last point that let's make this clear. People that also set the perimeter, people that use their vehicles to set up these events, in criminal terms, it's called aiding and abetting, those too will have their vehicles seized, and we will have the ability to go after them. So it's not just the individuals that are operating the vehicles, it's the individuals that are participating in and are major participants of setting up these events. That's something that Chief Scott and I spent a lot of time talking about. I know the mayor feels very strongly about this. We have to have accountability. So it's not just going to be the individuals that are driving the vehicles and doing the stunts. It's also going to be the people that are aiding and abetting and setting up these events. So we also, as a result, and I want to thank the mayor as part of the budget process, we're going to be getting over 15 cameras on this corner. And video evidence is one of the most important factors in these crimes. So this corner that's been plagued a few times, in the next few weeks we'll have 15 video cameras put up. We've been working with Captain Woon in his office to increase foot patrols. Foot patrols will have greater presence. So it's not just about the activity itself, it's about setting the environment to ensure people understand that we take the safety of this neighborhood as a top priority.